My name is Clara Whitmore, and on the night my husband was crowned a billionaire, I was publicly discarded like a stranger. The Waldorf's ballroom shimmered under chandeliers that dripped with light, every corner crowded with New York's power brokers. Waiters floated past with trays of champagne, laughter ricocheted off marble, and everywhere I looked, I saw familiar faces pretending not to stare at me. I had chosen my emerald gown carefully, or rather, Ethan had chosen it for me. Green makes your eyes look mysterious, he'd murmured, distracted as always. For 20 years, I had dressed, spoken, and smiled in ways that supported his climb. Tonight, I expected at least acknowledgement. Instead, I caught whispers that sliced sharper than glass. That's the frigid wife, the one who can't satisfy him. The words seemed to echo louder than the orchestra. I froze glass, trembling in my hand, my throat tightening as though I'd swallowed ice. I forced a smile, tried to keep walking, but every glance, every half-hidden smirk told me the rumor wasn't isolated. It was everywhere. Then she appeared. Sienna Blake, 28 years old, flawless, confident, in a way only someone who believes the world owes her could be. She glided across the floor in a crimson dress that clung to her like sin itself. Her perfume wrapped around me before her words did. Mrs. Whitmore, she purred, her smile ablaze. There's been a mistake. Tonight is for stakeholders only. Before I could respond, she flicked her fingers and 2 security guards approached. The same men who used to nod respectfully at me now refused to meet my eyes. Escort this useless woman out, she said loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. A ripple of laughter broke through the crowd. I turned instinctively toward Ethan, my husband. The man I had supported through sleepless nights, the man whose empire was built with my money, my connections, my labor. He stood with his investors, his back turned deliberately to me, as though I were no one at all. The guards guided me toward the revolving doors, their grip gentle but firm. My pulse hammered as humiliation burned through me, but beneath the heat of shame, another feeling sparked anger, leer, and cold. As the doors spun me out into the Manhattan night, neon light splashing across my skin, a thought crystallized in my mind, sharp enough to cut. They thought I was useless. They had no idea what I was about to do. The revolving doors spat me out into the Manhattan night, and the sharp air wrapped around me like punishment. I stood frozen on the steps, emerald silk clinging to my skin, the laughter from the ballroom bleeding through the glass behind me. I wanted to turn back, to shout, to demand Ethan acknowledge me, but I didn't. I gripped the railing instead, feeling the metal bite into my palm, and walked down the stairs. Each step echoed in the silence of my mind. My heels clicked against the stone, but for the first time in years, that sound wasn't armor. It was hollow. I pulled my clutch close to my chest as though it could shield me from the eyes of strangers rushing past on the sidewalk. They didn't know that my life had just split in two inside that ballroom. To them, I was just another overdressed woman trying to hail a cab. I reached into the clutch, searching for my phone, and my fingers brushed velvet, the box. I pulled it out and stared at the gift I had planned to give Ethan after his speech. A vintage watch, engraved with the coordinates of the Brooklyn Bridge where he had once promised me forever. My hands trembled, and for a moment I wanted to cling to it, to that memory. But then the box slipped, tumbling to the steps behind me. I looked at it resting there in the glow of the streetlight, and I walked away without picking it up. I dismissed the driver waiting by the curb and wandered aimlessly for blocks. My gown caught the night air, the city buzzing around me, alive and indifferent. People laughed, a siren wailed in the distance, a delivery truck roared past. The world didn't pause for my humiliation. That realization hurt, but it also jolted me. My pain wasn't special. It was mine to carry and mine to transform. When I finally reached the garage, my legs ached and my breath came ragged. I slid into the driver's seat of my Tesla, the leather cool against my back. I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I sat in the dim glow of the dashboard, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but not broken. For the first time, I saw something new staring back, the resolve. Images of the past flickered like old film reels. Ethan in his first office, the ink still drying on our lease, calling me with breathless excitement. "We're going to build something incredible, Clara." He had said we, but somewhere along the climb we had been erased. He had turned into he, and I had let him. My silence, my loyalty, my willingness to disappear behind him, it had made tonight possible. I dug into the center console and pulled out the leather folder I had been keeping for years. Inside were the documents I had insisted on, saving share certificates, bank statements, loan guarantees, incorporation papers. My name stamped across every page. Proof. Not of my humiliation, but of my contribution. I ran my fingers over the signatures, my own handwriting binding me to the company Ethan now pretended was his alone. The phone on the passenger seat buzzed violently. Ethan. Again and again. His name flashing, lighting up the interior with urgency. I let it ring until it went silent, then lit up again. I didn't answer. I didn't need his explanations or excuses. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at a number I hadn't dialed in months. Daniel Lee, my financial advisor. My thumb hovered for a second. My breath caught in my chest, and then I pressed call. He answered groggily. "Clara, it's late. Is everything all right?" "No," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "Everything is about to change." A pause. "What do you mean I need you ready Monday morning?" "I want to liquidate my 19% stake in Whitmore & Company, every share, and freeze every joint account credit savings checking. Anything tied to Ethan." The silence on the line stretched. Then Daniel exhaled. "Clara, that's over 20 million. This will make waves." "Are you certain?" I looked back into the mirror, into my own eyes. "I've never been more certain." I hung up before he could protest further. The phone buzzed again, almost instantly, Ethan desperate this time. I laughed softly, the sound bitter and new. He had no idea what was coming. I gathered the papers into a neat stack, placed them back into the folder, and whispered into the quiet car, "You thought I was useless, but you've just reminded me how dangerous I can be." And with that, I finally started the engine. When I pulled into our driveway, the house glowed like a museum, perfect, lighting, perfect landscaping, and not a single trace of warmth. I let myself in through the side door and went straight to the kitchen. The marble counters, polished to a shine, reflected back a stranger in an emerald dress. For years, this room had been the stage where I entertained Ethan's clients, refilling glasses, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Tonight, it felt sterile, a showroom that had nothing to do with me. I poured a glass of red wine and set my papers on the island. One by one, I spread them out as if I were laying cards on a table, articles of incorporation with my name beside his. Loan guarantees where my assets had been the safety net. Share certificates proving my stake. Every page was a reminder that I had built this company with him, and every page would help me take it back. My phone lit up again, Ethan's name flashing like a siren. I ignored it until the buzzing stopped, then glanced at the screen. Dozens of missed calls. A flood of texts. "Pick up. We need to talk. Don't do anything reckless. Stop this now, before it goes too far." His panic was almost visible. I took another sip of wine and felt a grim satisfaction settle in my chest. I called Daniel back once more to confirm. To execute. Monday morning, I told him. No delays. He sighed, the sound of a man who knew this was irreversible. "All right. But you realize the fallout will be massive. I'm counting on it." After hanging up, I stared at the watch box still missing from my bag, the one I'd abandoned on the hotel steps. It struck me as fitting. The engraved coordinates had marked where Ethan once promised forever. Now, they belonged to someone else, or maybe to no one at all. The clock edged past midnight when I dialed our travel agent, Linda. Her groggy hello told me she had been asleep. "Cancel everything for Tuscany next month," I said. "But Clara, that was your anniversary trip. The fees. Cancel it." I cut in. "Send the paperwork to me directly." Her pause carried pity. I didn't want pity. I wanted closure. When I hung up, the house was so quiet, I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. Silence used to frighten me. I had filled it with tasks, with Ethan's needs, with a schedule that left no space for my own thoughts. Tonight, silence felt like oxygen. Another buzz. This time a text from hotel security. Mrs. Whitmore, you left a small box on the steps. Should I bring it to your car? I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back, keep it, or throw it away. I don't care. But I did care. That was the problem. For 2 decades, I had cared more than enough for Ethan, for his ambitions, for the version of us that existed only in my memory. My caring had become a trap. And tonight, I had finally found the key. I gathered the papers into a neat stack and held them against my chest. You thought I was useless, I whispered to the empty kitchen. But you forgot who built this with you. For the first time all evening, I smiled not out of joy, but out of recognition. The woman staring back from the dark kitchen window was no longer invisible. She was ready. Morning came gray and sharp. I had barely slept, but my body carried me forward as though it had been waiting for this day for years. I dressed in a navy suit I hadn't worn since I'd stopped attending strategy meetings, tied my hair back, and left the house before the sun fully climbed the skyline. By 8, I was in the boardroom of Whitmore & Company half an hour early. The table stretched the length of the room, polished and intimidating, but I felt no fear. I laid my documents out across the surface in corporation papers, loan guarantees, investment receipts. To anyone else, they were just paper. To me, they were armor. The board members filed in one by one. James Morrison, the CFO, nodded stiffly before sitting down. Patricia Webb from legal looked queasy, eyes darting to the stack of papers in front of me. No one asked why I was there. They knew. The heavy doors opened and Ethan strode in, but the man who had commanded rooms with his confidence now looked frayed. His tie was crooked, his silver hair out of place. And behind him, Sienna, in a crimson suit, arms folded, trying to appear unshaken. She hovered by the wall, no longer bold enough to stand at his side. "What the hell are you doing?" Clara Ethan's voice cracked as he dropped into the chair across from me. "You've set off a crisis. Our stock is falling, the bank is calling, clients are demanding answers." I folded my hands neatly in my lap. "Good morning, Ethan." "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the time." His fist hit the table. "Don't patronize me. This is an emotional breakdown, and you're dragging the company down with you." I slid the first document forward. "This is the incorporation filing. You'll notice my name listed as co-founder and primary investor." He scoffed. "That was symbolic. Was it?" I laid down the next sheet. "This is the loan guarantee I signed in 2004 when you needed $3 million for expansion. My personal assets secured that deal." Sienna shifted her arms, loosening. Patricia's pen froze mid-note. "And this," I said, sliding the thickest stack across the table, "is every financial contribution I've made for 20 years. $27 million in direct investment, not to mention my connections, my labor, and my time." The room went silent, except for the low hum of the AC. Ethan's color drained. He stood pacing like an animal looking for an open cage door. "You're trying to destroy me. Admit it." I leaned back, calm. "This isn't revenge. This is business. You erased me from the story of Whitmore & Co. You humiliated me in public. You underestimated me. That ends now." He froze, eyes darting toward the board members who refused to meet his gaze. The authority he'd wielded for years slipped through his hands. Patricia finally broke the silence. "Clara, what exactly do you want?" "I'm not here to negotiate," I said. "I've already divested my holdings. The company will need to restructure to survive." "You can't just," Ethan started. "I can, and I have." For the first time, I turned to Sienna. She straightened but couldn't hold my gaze. The woman who had ordered me out like garbage now looked pale, her lipstick too bright against skin drained of color. Of course, I added, still watching her, the company might recover with new leadership, someone not tainted by scandal. The implication landed like a hammer. Ethan's mouth twitched, and for a second, I thought he might collapse into the chair. Finally, his voice broke. "What do you want from me?" I stood collecting my papers, tucking them back into the folder with precision. "I want recognition and respect. Since you can't give them, I'll claim them myself." He sank into his chair, shoulders bowed. Then so quietly, It was almost a whisper, "I'm stepping down." The words rippled through the room. Patricia exhaled sharply. James scribbled notes as if to anchor himself. Sienna's face crumpled, her future evaporating in real time. "That's wise," I said. "My attorney will send the divorce papers. Once you've secured the company's future, we'll divide the rest." I walked to the door. Behind me, voices erupted in frantic whispers, the scrape of chairs, the scratch of pens. I didn't look back. For 20 years, I had been invisible. With one morning's work, I had become undeniable. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft chime, sealing off the chaos in that boardroom. By the time I reached the garage, I felt lighter than I had in decades. I drove home in silence, letting the rhythm of the city outside my windows remind me that life had always moved forward even when I'd stood still. At home, the kitchen no longer looked sterile. It looked empty, in the best way, space waiting to be filled. On the table sat the envelope Rebecca had prepared, weeks ago, divorce papers crisp and undeniable. I signed them with a steady hand. My maiden name, Clara Bennett, flowing across the page like it had been waiting for me all along. The weeks that followed blurred into motions I had never imagined myself taking, meeting with Rebecca's team to outline financial claims, combing through files to prove contributions, setting up accounts in my name alone. Each step cut another tether. Ethan called less and less until the silence between his attempts stretched long enough to feel permanent. I didn't chase it. What I did chase was air and space. I walked the city, long, aimless walks through neighborhoods I'd once only sped past on my way to client dinners. In the Lower East Side, I stumbled into a small gallery. The walls were lined with photographs of women, faces unadorned, gazes direct. Something inside me shifted. That night, I opened a closet and found the leather camera case I hadn't touched in years. My fingers traced the latches before opening it. The camera sat there, patient, waiting. When I lifted it, it felt like remembering a language I had once spoken fluently. I enrolled in a continuing education class at Pratt. Our instructor, Elena, was a retired magazine photographer with sharp eyes and sharper questions. On the first day, she watched me adjust the focus on a portrait and said, "You don't hesitate. That's rare." I began carrying the camera everywhere. I photographed baristas on smoke breaks, a grandmother at a bus stop, a nurse resting her head against a train window. I learned how to ask for moments, how to step back when people needed space, how to lean in when they were ready. Slowly, a series formed, Resilience Women Reclaimed. Each photograph was a mirror held up to women who had bent but not broken. Parallel to this, I met Ava and Noor, two designers in Brooklyn, working out of a cramped studio with bolts of fabric leaning like soldiers against the wall. Their startup, Sable North, made sustainable coats stitched with stubborn pride. "We can't grow without capital," Ava told me, smoothing a lapel. "But we won't compromise who we are." I invested, not because the numbers were perfect, though they were promising, but because I recognized the fire in them. I had once had that same fire, and I refused to let it go unrecognized again. Months rolled forward. My photographs filled contact sheets, and my Saturdays filled with visits to Sable North's studio. Rebecca updated me on the divorce proceedings, her tone brisk, but edged with satisfaction. "You documented everything. It's airtight," she said. And I realized that my meticulousness, once mocked as obsessive, was my strength. Nearly a year after the night at the Waldorf James Whitfield, a gallery owner invited me to exhibit. 8 pieces, he said, tapping his finger on prints spread across a table. "These breathe. That's what collectors want." The opening night shimmered with anticipation. My portraits hung in a clean line, women's faces holding their own against the white walls. Strangers wandered the room, stopping to study, whispering to each other, sometimes wiping their eyes. A woman about 30 paused in front of a photograph of a nurse on a fire escape, her face up and tired, but smiling. Tears welled in the younger woman's eyes. "She looks free," she whispered. "She'd just finished a double shift," I told her. She said the quiet made her feel human again. The woman nodded, brushing at her cheeks. "I'm going through a divorce. I didn't think I could stand on my own." "You will," I said gently. "You'll bend, maybe, but you won't break." Her smile was small but certain. Watching her, I felt a reflection of myself, a reminder that survival wasn't the end goal. Rebirth was. As the night wound down, Sarah, my sister, clasped my hand. "You're different," she whispered, pride softening her voice. "I am," I answered. And I believed it. Near the end of the exhibition, as the crowd thinned, I felt a presence behind me that pulled me back across time. I turned and there was Ethan. His suit hung loose, his hair was thinner, and the confidence he had once worn like armor was gone. For a heartbeat, I saw the man I had married, the ambitious lawyer who promised me we'd build something extraordinary. Then the image dissolved, and all that remained was a man emptied by his own choices. He approached carefully, as if I might vanish. "Clara," he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "You look happy." I nodded. "I am." His eyes moved to the photographs on the wall, lingering on the one of the nurse smiling through exhaustion. "These are beautiful. I heard about your investment too. Sable North, right? You're doing well." "I'm living my life," I told him. "That's more than I can say about the years I spent living yours." He winced, but didn't argue. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything, for erasing you, for humiliating you. I know I can't fix it, but I needed to say it." "Thank you," I said. No anger, no longing, no need for anything more. "I hope you find what you're looking for." I left him standing there among the portraits, surrounded by the faces of women who had bent and not broken. Outside, the night air wrapped cool around me, carrying the hum of cabs and the rhythm of a saxophone from a subway entrance. My phone buzzed, Sarah texting, "Dinner tomorrow. I'll bring dessert." Another message from Elena Collectors, "Want to talk book deal." I smiled, slid the phone back into my bag, and lifted my camera. The skyline glittered, imperfect and alive. I raised the lens and captured it. Lowering the camera, I whispered to myself, steady and sure, "A woman is never useless. When she rises, everything changes." And with that, I walked into the night, whole, unafraid, and finally free. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.